I'm pleased to be able to bring to judges, attorneys, mediators, and other family professionals the wisdom of Chris Potts. Chris is one of the great healing-minded lawyers and family mediators in our community. Chris, thanks for being here.
Well, thank you, Charlie. I appreciate the time.
And I thought it would be great if you could spend a minute or so talking about, in your mediation work, what's the difference when you have clients who are coming in who are represented by attorneys who have been examples of problem solvers, who themselves have shown courtesy between each other, courtesy toward the clients, and a goal of building a better future for these two people, their children, and their family, versus when you have people come in and the attorneys are of the historic variety, I'll call it, it's a battle to the end. My client is going to crush the other parent, and I'm going to help the client do so. Well, how does it affect your work when you're able to have one versus the other, those models?
From a mediation standpoint, it's night and day. The attorneys can be part of the problem, or they can be part of the solution. And we want the attorneys to be part of the solution. I've been in enough mediations through the years to see the difference, and there are damaging aspects to the attorneys who want to fight. The attorneys who are interested in winning rather than interested in doing what's fair and what's reasonable and what's best for the children. If the attorneys are willing to set the example for the clients, you'll find that not only will the mediation go better or the proceeding go better, but also everybody comes out a winner. There's a collaborative effort on the part of the attorneys to remind their clients of what is reasonable, what is equitable, and what is fair. And then the clients have a tendency to learn from their own attorneys and say, you know what, if he's willing to act that way, then I guess I can too. The same thing is true on the other end of the scale, though. A destructive attorney can create a destructive client, and that's when you get more into the adversarial side of things. Contentiousness grows as a result of the attorneys getting angry or taking positions that are either unreasonable or unfathomable. You have also the added frustration that a client will have when they see the attorneys getting upset. You know, if an attorney can't keep his cool through the process, then the client thinks, well, this is a learned exercise. They say, well, if it's okay for the attorney to act emotionally and act improperly and call people names, then I guess it must be okay for me to do that too.
This is the way we do it.
And so the bottom line on it is, in our profession, I'm hopeful that we can teach the professionals at every level, not only the attorneys, the mediators, the caseworkers, and the judges, that you want to steer the clients in the right direction. And positive reinforcement of good behavior is the best way to do that.
We have a handout on the Up to Parents website on the Professionals Corner about the attorneys as healers, and our proud tradition as problem solvers. And there are a number of Lincoln quotes in there, including his famous one from July 1st, 1850, where he gave notes, 5 suggestions on being a great lawyer. And the first one is to be a peacemaker. At all costs, counsel people toward being peacemakers. And I think he has a famous line in there that as a peacemaker, a lawyer has a superior opportunity of being a great man. What we'd say today, a great person. I guess there weren't that many female attorneys back in 1850, but that's so true. I find sometimes judges will send to us as mediators a case where people have been to court. I had one where Judge Reedy sent a couple to me after they'd been to court 40 times, and I always talk to the attorneys together, and my question was, what is left to do here? What have we modeled? But can we really turn the corner here? And interestingly, I find that most attorneys do want to be problem solvers. My favorite question to ask attorneys in that brief conversation I have with them is, counsel, where are these folks? Where would you like them to be in a year, they and their children, and how can the three of us help get them there? And you know, they have fabulous ideas. What is distressing as I hear the ideas is it's evident this is the first time they've talked about those ideas, sometimes. And then, of course, there are other cases where the attorneys have modeled this problem solving and this courtesy and this seeing the problem as the problem and not using this as an occasion for one ad hominem attack after another. And the parents, even though they started out in a pretty conflictual situation, have grown to that they almost solve their, I'm an observer to peace breaking out, because we've now sat down and said, okay, this is just going to be the place that we sort of wrap it up. So the attorneys are so important. I just think it's a mistake to believe that you can have people in war for weeks or months or years, and then 2 hours with Chris or Charlie and everything
All's well.
All's well.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
we want to do our work in the environment of a larger ecology of peacemaking.
No question about it. And attorneys can play that role, and should, in fact, play the role of the healer. Talk to your client, whether it's the courthouse that you're in or whether it is in a mediation situation. Talk to them about what would be the reasonable way to heal the wound instead of widening the fracture. That should be the attorney's responsibility under any circumstance. We're not here to make a bad situation worse. Our job is to assist our client to represent them zealously, but also remember the overall objective. And the overall objective is to make sure that that child is as well off as possible.
I had one of our warrior attorneys locally tell me once, Charlie, well, you have the luxury of thinking about the children. I have a client to represent, and I just was weeping inside because I thought, what higher interest does your client have than saving this child's childhood, which is, by the way, being sacrificed for a senseless war? In fact, these parents, as we've talked in other videos, Chris, these parents actually have, whether they know it or not, the common interests. They really should both be interested in giving this child the best childhood possible, saving money, being able to make their own decisions, live into a better future rather than blame each other for the past and grade each other's lives. That's truly, so I think it's a complete myth that they have a conflict in their legal interests. Their best legal interests are exactly mutual, but in any event, it's a privilege, I think, for us to be able to talk to parents about their kids and how using their needs and meeting their needs is their common goal out of it. It's in pursuing those best interests that is of the kids that the parents are going to build that partnership.
It's also an obligation. And part of the obligation, you know, when we get in the mediation setting, I try to remind not only the clients but also the attorneys that as far as the courtroom scenario sometimes is referred to as adversarial, I try and say, well, the mediation is on one end of the spectrum, litigation is on the other. So now we have to take off our advocate's hat. Let's talk about healing. Let's talk about solving problems in a collaborative fashion. And that's the obligation that comes along with anything else that the attorney has when the attorney's hired. Spend some time talking to your client about what's reasonable, what's appropriate, how the child will benefit from this process. The child has already been damaged by the very divorce. The last thing we need are attorneys who are more interested in creating a larger chasm by winning in some particular area of the law, in this litigation field.
Chris, thanks so much for your time and for being here. People watching this should know by now why one of our local judges said, if you're in a fight with Chris Potts, it's your fault. Thanks so much,
Well,
Chris.
thank you very much, Charlie. I appreciate it.